that produce nitrogen. And then the third one is moisture is vital for the breakdown of organic matter, but we gotta consider that it can't be too wet, but it needs moisture. And then for the fourth step would be the turning of compost. It makes it faster. It makes the compost process faster. And what we wanted to consider here is if what we found out that if you keep turning or yeah, if you keep the turn and mixture of compost, it kind of like cuts the risk of it being smelly. And for the fifth one, um, so we found out that it provides steam at certain times, but not all the time. And we considered of having kind of like a piping system that would guide the steam for it not to affect other activities around the compost area. And lastly, visual recognition of absence of remnants of food is something that we wanted to consider. So we were thinking these are like the highlights that kind of like affect our design process of the different um, composting systems around our building. So this is something to basically show you upgraded version of what we did last time. We showed you a section of our bokashi composting. And yung comment mo dun, sir, was we have to think more uh, like in different perspectives or in different angles because that was only vertical. So this is basically this in AXO. Um, we wanted to kind of like take a step back and look how it will interact with the horticulture programming that will go around the site. So basically, this is a massing of how it would interact with the circulation. Um, but yeah.
Wait, Jess, could you go back to the previous slide? I just want to add a little bit something. So yeah, we'll be going more in depth on like why or how that works within our site. Just a note, we'll be using that as a way to kind of highlight specific areas for people to like lounge in. So it acts as the focal point for the different areas of the people. And also another thing I forgot to mention, Kanina. So we mentioned how indirect horticulture will be guiding and circulating the people around the site. But I forgot to mention how direct horticulture will interact. So we're using direct horticulture to create functions and activities for the individual people for their own benefit in the public spaces. So we'll be having like different areas for them to interact with the plants, to care for them. So we can have like therapy sessions or horticultural therapeutic sessions in the public areas, as well as different activities that cater to the needs of the demographics that also can like have them be around the plants as well or like interact with it. So it finds a way to make it both interactive, functional, and aesthetic. So next. Okay, so this slide, this shows the left side of that section, that being the composting functions. So we wanted to create these bins that we would actually use as the focal point. So these are actually trash bins, but we are not trash bins, sorry, composting bins that we kind of developed because upon our research, it's actually good in composting to kind of cycle the material inside it, or to kind of flip it around and like mix it around every now and then to help it aerate and like ventilate better. So we wanted to do that naturally in a way that the people would see. So on the railings, we decided to create these bins that would actually spin with the wind hitting it. So we're putting this in the valley that we created on like our conceptual massing that we showed a few weeks ago. So yeah, the reason why we're putting it in that valley is, as mentioned before, the valley kind of makes use of Bernoulli's principle, wherein we channel air. So it's actually a lot stronger through that valley.
Carlos, did you say next?
So like for kids, like the colorful ones. So we wanted to use that idea and like how it could brighten up certain areas while still be functional, like or with a purpose. So yeah, and then that column also you see there, it's like weirdly shaped. So that's relating back to Jazz's Bokashi column aspect. So we'll be introducing that also within the structure and within the valley as well as focal points. So next.
Uh, I just want to add on. I just want to point out, sir, that we know that hindi hindi every minute kami makakuha ng wind. We just wanted to point out that the turning of this is kind of like an optional thing, but it makes the composting process better and speeds it up faster.
Yeah. Okay. And then so yeah, all of those sheets that we presented so far have been from like week 8, but we needed a direction to go for week 9. And since we didn't really have a meeting, we decided to just kind of push forward with how we could envision the site or what we have so far in 3D to get a better grasp of what we have so far. So I was kind of working with what I had in my head and like how I envisioned it already. And this is kind of what I've created. So as you can see, this is our conceptual model, our kind of like esquisse model, if you would like to call it that. And the highlight for me at least is the valley in itself. We wanted to create a quote unquote alleyway like experience that would be within the site, but still kind of give this outdoor public feel. And like all around you could see like different ways of composting, propagating plants, and the way that people kind of move around and like interact with each other. So it focuses a lot on having these balconies and these bridges that cross from building to building. So we've presented already like how those bridges work and like the math behind it a few weeks ago, but we just wanted to show it in 3D to see how it would look as well. So next. So this is our ground floor and mezzanine. So our ground floor, from the way we modeled it, we wanted it to be higher in its ceiling height compared to all the other floors because we wanted to give it multiple functions. So it's kind of hard to tell with this picture, pero we'll be further explaining that one later. Pero yeah, there are in total around like 3 different floor levels for the ground floor and 2 different levels for the mezzanine area. But basically, we just wanted to show that we're going to be segregating spaces based on their function and the way the people interact within it. So next slide. This is for the ground floor. So we'll be using different floor levels as previously mentioned for different reasons. So the top floor will be the catchment area, the general public area for gathering within the site, and then the middle one will be for functional public spaces, that of which we still have to define. Our ideas have led us to putting like a chapel, like different stores that people need, or different ways for people to run their errands, for example, and then a waste collection system also at the lowest level that also acts as a point of entry. So we talked about how we kind of thought someone would go about the site. So like when we mentioned before, we thought like someone, for example, if they're gonna run errands for their friends or with their friends, they're gonna want to like eat with them or like hang out with them. So well, before doing that, why not get something done like productive? So why not like take out the trash or bring it to like a waste collection area that can be segregated, recycled, and etc. And from there, that's how you enter the site through that collection area, and then that would lead to your functional spaces and or like the eating areas as well. So this is all specifically for the ground floor area. Next, this is the valley. So we want to show or include that idea also within the valley itself to create different spaces. So we mentioned before how we want to integrate like Jane Jacobs' urban planning idea of like eyes on the street. So the reason why we made the catchment area the highest is because you have a better view of everyone around you when you're higher up than them. So you can actually see the people like all throughout the valley. And then we added stairs and ramps. These ramps are 1:12 or about like 8% in its grade. So this is the most feasible for like people with wheelchairs. So it's very accessible, very easy for people to maneuver on their own. And we want to show that we're catering to like everyone talaga. And next. So yeah, we're creating these lounge areas as well to kind of help that eyes on the street idea that there will always be people around. So we can also use these for functional spaces. They could be like stalls or even just like bench areas, people to sit in and hang around. So we use the space that we like kind of create because of the ramps, because of how long they are. we needed to find a way that would make use of the space that was kind of left out because of them. So we're going to use the ramps to kind of encapsulate or bucket these areas. So those ramps, their length is 6 meters, because like the difference in height between each level is half a meter. So yeah, that yeah. And next, this is how from the valley naman you're able to get into the ground floor of each building. So we just want to show that how it circulates, how you'll move in and around the site, and how you can get to the mezzanine floors. So the main feature will be the ramp systems, but we will probably have like fire wells, or what's it called? Sorry, fire exits on either end to still make it like accessible or allow people to circulate however they please. Next. And this is like the typical shape of like each floor from second floor and above. So like those two arrows in the middle showcase how the main way of getting to these floors, so that the bridges crossing from building to building. But yeah, as mentioned, we will probably have staircases on opposite ends to kind of help people circulate if need be. Next. So with that floor plan, we wanted to segregate the spaces based on our experience or the experiential aspect of the site and how the resource management will be done. So since we link those together, we generalize it to composting, farming, and consumption. So we thought of the general encashment area for each floor would be for composting and farming. So we'll find a way to integrate both together. So the public space or pathways, public space will be like for farming, that being the direct horticulture, and composting will be the indirect and or like management systems such as the bins and the columns as well. So, and then the consumption areas as presented before, we imagine having like these greenhouse areas to both dry up the chopped up water hyacinths for composting, as well as to propagate other plants and have like a food court area for people to dine in alongside the plants around them. So overall, the entire space kind of integrates indirect horticulture as well. So next slide. And this is the section, just to show like lines on Illustrator, where we want to show it like how it actually works also, like in a full model actually. So as you can see, each floor is about 2.5 meters, except for the bottom floors where it's around 6 or 5 meters. So everything is still very like accessible and like has enough headroom for people, while still like being shrunk down a little bit for people to kind of be able to access each floor with a really shallow ramp. So which is why the buildings aren't exactly even in their height. So next. And this is how we want to zone it out in terms of the section naman or the side view. So composting would be for the ground floor, the mezzanine, and or the catchment areas and like kind of general walkways of each floor. So relating to the bridge, relating to the bridges in the middle, everything will be about composting and managing your waste. So your waste actually acts as kind of your quote unquote your key in and around the site. You're able to throw it here, and then it theoretically and or like metaphorically helps you grow the plants that are already on the site, and those plants you get that, so that becomes your fruit or your vegetables and such. So from your trash it becomes your vegetables, and from there it becomes your meal. Like so that kind of helps you guide you through the site itself. So next.
All right. Last week, sir, we presented something that is kind of similar to this. We presented kind of like the circulation of how we wanted the users to kind of eat, and then to kind of like farm, and then kung ano yung nakuha nila, sir, yung ipapaluto nila, and then kung ano yung matitira sa kinain nila, yun yung ipapa-compost nila. So there's a cycle of that going on with the cafeteria, the farming, and the composting. This one, sir, is another area of the site, which is the waste collection areas that will be spread out to the corners of our site. So basically, ito, sir, yung area na nag-collect ng trash ng mga tao, like the one Carlos was mentioning, where trash or garbage would be segregated. Some parts would be recycled, some parts would be or composting. So basically, first off, the service, it goes through the waste collection to be segregated and to be composted, for composting or for recycling, and then mapupunta siya sa farming. And the other primary circulation, basically for the people, is dadaan yung mga tao sa waste collection, and or dadaan sila sa market, which should be the entrance. And this is another activity in our site. The market would kind of like showcase or sell the different fruits that we are growing sa farming systems namin in the building. So yung produce ng farming would be ibibenta sa market basically. And we have this idea, sir, na if you buy something, if you buy like a crop sa market, you would have to also plant sa farming, kind of like creating a give and take system in in the architecture of the building. So one thing to consider here is hindi namin ipapaglapit yung farming and waste collection. So that would have an indirect access. But nagfo-flow around yung people and yung service flow going to the farming. I guess this is our last sheet. Carlos, you want to add something?
I'm good now.
Yeah, this is our last sheet. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sige, can I see the first slides again? I just want to check something. Okay. No,
This one, sir.
forward na lang, forward. Let's move forward. Okay, so this is a creative typology. Are you guys there? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
It's a creative typology. So aside from the farm, what else can they do?
Sir, yeah, we'll be defining the public spaces. So if you see like there, like on that section, there's actually like that guy who's farming, like the
Yeah.
produce.
Yeah.
So we envision that to be like our way of direct horticulture. So like we'll be planning for different activities, like to kind of facilitate each public space, like
Okay.
to cater
Right.
to each area.
So what, for example, you're talking about horticulture. So what kind of programs can you introduce with that idea? So is that what you mean?
Yes, sir. So like
Okay.
from what we've seen, there are different activities such as like meditating,
Right.
taking care of
Okay.
these plants, like playground areas. But like
Yes.
they all integrate these plants, and we're trying to find ways to
Sige.
find like ways to integrate
Hopefully we'll
plants in.
find I'll see something develop next week, but this is a very, very good start because like I said, you really need to commit to something, to a study first, before you can really see some results. And I'm seeing some results already, and I'm happy that you guys are committing to drawing it first and creating a 3D because a lot of the students before you, if they are unsure, they don't do anything at all. And I'm happy that you guys are mature enough. It has something to do with your batch, I think, that you guys do first, even though you are so doubtful with the process. And now I can guide you better. So and actually not even guide you. You know what to do already. Maybe just unsure, just like what I mentioned to Kila Kevin and Tracy. So when I asked you about the other programs, tama naman, you said it correctly. You have to think of compatible programs. And to add to that, you need to think of programs that are also commercially viable. So the spa is commercially viable. I don't know if a tea house is also commercially viable. So that whatever things that you are doing that is creative in this building will be compensated for that. And then can we move forward again? Okay. So I just noticed some glaring technical stuff. These are beautiful sheets. Forward, forward. Yeah. So this is what I was saying. Like you're already committed to it, no? So basic stuff. Technically, you need to know that 2.5 to 2.5 floor to floor is too low. Okay, because you need to consider the beam. Do you get it?
Yes, sir. So well, sir, originally, because we thought about shrinking the floor heights to kind of or cater to the elderly, so to kind of help them circulate each ramp like on their own. Para like if it's too steep for them, they'll probably need help or like such. So we kind of made it like a little shorter, and then we made each floor kind of zigzag. So the difference from floor to floor, like from left side to right side building, is only about 1 meter.
No, I understand that part. But technically, if just 2.5, and then what is the distance of your columns?
Sir, that is like a maximum of 6 meters.
6 meters. So more or less you have 500 beams. So you're left with 2 meters ceiling height.
Yes. Sige, sir.
So
Well,
think
so
about
like,
that.
it's okay if we make it a little bit like steeper naman. Like,
Yeah, pwede naman. I mean, I'm not saying no to 2.5 and just making you aware because I saw your sections, you didn't reflect the beams. Because when you're designing something, especially if you're going to have your own projects already down the road, you need to think that way. You need to consider this. You're not just thinking about the slab and the column, you're thinking about the beams. Not only that, what will happen under the beams? Because especially if you're going to conceal the wiring, the ducting with ceiling, with false ceiling, then it will make the ceiling height much lower.
yeah, yes, sir. So,
I
yeah,
just
we'll
want
consider that.
yeah, so it may not be applicable to this project, but I just want to make sure that you know that you're aware of those considerations so that the moment you design something, it's already automatic and intuitive for you to consider the beams. All right?
Mm.
Sige,
Kasi
sir.
kanina,
Well,
yeah. I saw the sections kasi kanina I didn't see the beams. I just saw the slab and the columns. May kulang ka ng beams, so di na-reflect. Kasi if you reflect the beams, you will realize that you have a low ceiling height. Again, I'm not saying no to the height that you guys set because if you're not going to put a ceiling and your idea is to expose the piping that are crawling on the surface of the beam and then goes up again to the soffit of the slab. You know what soffit means? Diba? You have the top of the floor and then under it, mga 100 mm yun, 150. Under it, directly below you, that's the soffit. Do you get it? So
yes,
it's going to be concrete. So try to imagine that from the beam, kasi you cannot penetrate through the beams because they're structural. So all of your piping will have to crawl through the beams, run across. Do you get it?
yes, sir.
Okay,
Sige, sir.
so if that is your design, then I guess this design is okay, but you need to reflect where the beams are. So there will be areas where there's a low beam height. So but if majority of the areas are high, so I would assume if it's 2.5 and then you have 150, 150 na slab, so 350 yung pinaka maximum ceiling height ninyo. Plus the piping that is going to be exposed. So try to think of those considerations. So and then can we go back to the previous slide?
Previous, sir.
Yeah, so
Or
let me understand that. Ano, so before that, can we go to the other isometric drawing showing the columns? Because this also revealed that you don't have any columns in the middle. Like you need to
Yeah, sir. We just don't know. So far, if you just want to show like from the outside, but we'll be planning pa how the
sige.
columns work in the inside naman. It's
Okay.
just for representation's sake.
Sure. Okay, that's good. Pero reflect it na as, even with this diagram to make it.
Yeah, sige, sir.
Yeah.
I just got a little scared to move that far ahead because I wasn't sure if this was okay pa naman. Pero yeah, sige, we'll reflect it for next week.
Okay, so for the previous slide, can we go to the previous slide? Okay. Yeah, that one. Can you make me understand this again?
Sige, sir. So in terms of composting, like, diba, we have them in bins, but the problem is with that these bins actually need to be turned, or like you need to mix the content inside it every so often, and that actually helps the composting go faster. So these bins, we shape them as such to have these kind of like windmill-esque sides, so that the wind would naturally have it turn every so often.
Are you
So these are
sure
actually like bins.
it will turn on its
Sorry,
own?
sir.
Are you sure it can turn
With
on
the
its own?
wind, sir. So like these bins are naturally quite light, so they're like plastic material, but then yeah, like the contents of which naman are just dried up leaves and such naman, so they don't hold that much weight to it. Plus, with our idea of that having a valley, the wind will kind of channel through it to be a little bit stronger than just the normal environment air through Bernoulli's principle. So
Okay.
what that does is it creates like a low pressure zone that makes wind travel a little bit faster.
Okay. Actually, I love this part. So I think you're slowly getting what I mean by an architecture that has something. So now that you already tried this, how do you make this more pretty architecturally? You know what I mean? So that way it becomes acceptable. Like when you go there, oh, it's a beautiful architectural feature, and then later on they'll realize that it's actually doing something, that it's actually functional. So
Yes.
that's what I meant by pushing it a little already. It's why you're exploring. So how do you explore other ways to design this? Well, I know this is going to function already. How do you deviate from the machine aesthetic? How It's just a question. How do you deviate from this very very functional idea, a very very functional aesthetic? I mean, this is already acceptable. Don't get me wrong, but if you are going to make it look sort of cool, like part of the building, that it doesn't look like it's a machine, I think you can develop something very interesting. But as it is acceptable for me. I mean, you already started with putting them on the railing. So yeah, so I think that's a start. But of course, the functionality of the railing becomes a question. So because you have those rotating objects. So think about that. But at least you guys are thinking on the right mindset already.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. So what else? Maybe one more concern is, since it is going to be a special typology or a fabric building.
Are you asking us, sir?
Yeah.
Fabric building namin to, sir.
Okay. So if that's the case, how do you imagine this functionality? Can you imagine this functionality, this creative stuff happening in a residential place? The composting thing. It's a question actually.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Yun lang yung hinahanap ko. So, kasi it cannot be fabric if you cannot apply it to other typologies. Kasi you cannot replicate it. So in a way, this prototype that you are developing is like an example, it's just a specimen wherein you can best develop a composting idea for a building.
Mm.
All right?
Right.
Okay. Did I make sense?
Yes, sir, you did.
Okay, sige. Do you have any questions?
So we have a question lang on the requirement.
Mhm.
Kasi,
Wala sa
sir,
tapos.
naka-data lang kasi siya, sir.
Okay, so ikaw na bahala sa kanya.
Iniisip namin, sir, kung required ba mag-mid-rise, kasi we were like, maybe it's too big, it's too tall. May restrictions ba, sir? Na,
No.
Or,
Kanino
alright.
you need to follow the master plan of Buen Camino.
Yes. Ano
Yeah.
naman siya, sir? Parang sakto naman. Hindi naman siya tumalagpas sa height limit.
Ayun,
It's just-
in case there's no problem. It's just that
Okay.
the moment you build 5 stories and up, 4 stories, 4 or 5 stories, I think, you need to provide an elevator already by code. That's by code already. So you need to,
Even if it's against our concept.
yeah, by code yun eh. I think it's okay.
Alright.
You just provide it by code. Right now, my priority is that you guys exhaust the idea, the possibility of the idea. If it's against your concept, then just build 4 stories maximum.
Alright. Okay, sir. One more question, sir. Kanina, sir, you were mentioning something, parang our areas, dapat we consider them to be commercialized. One of the activities na sinama namin, sir, we presented last time, is magkakaroon kami ng siesta lounges. But we wanted them to be available for the elderly lang kasi we were thinking na baka something bad might happen if magkaroon kami ng siesta, public siesta lounges for kids.
Then there should
Um,
be a method to segregate the elderly, like how you screen people to go to that space.
mm, all right.
Yes, it's like a
Wow.
typical, it's like a lounge in an airport wherein you need to enter through a door guarded by someone because
Mm,
it's exclusive for people. But it kind of
parang VIP.
loses the democratic quality of the space.
Yeah.
So if you can solve it architecturally, then you may do so.
Or we could develop the activity better. Turn it into a spa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yun lang ang answer, yung questions.
Sige, good job,
Um,
guys.
stop share ka na, sir.
Hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Sige, thank you,
Um,
guys. You may go if you want na. So
okay.
just ano
Thank you,
lang
sir.
tayo, guys. So who wants to go next? Antea?
Yes po.
Okay, sige, go ahead. Sorry guys, nauna sila Antea.
Mm.
Okay, you want to
Ano-
share?
Wait lang. Oh, wait. Kasi usually it's Bernadette. So,
Wait lang po, sir.
Okay, Maureen.
okay. Sige. Okay.
So, this is our model, yung what our urban fabric looks like in 3D. Parang first draft ng last week 8. Then this iterations, yes. Tapos this is the master, like the site of the side of the urban fabric. So the site is 3,554 square meters, and according to the master plan, ito yung view deck. So we decided 3 stories lang yung building, and it has access to the landscape here, the Aceros landscape vista. So we calculated the lot information, the lot, like how many square meters it has. So the lot is 54 by 66 meters. So our saleable area is around 1,725 square meters, and the non-saleable area is 739. So in our previous artist study daw, like it's fine if hindi like sakto yung number of yung goal for the area to the actual area. So yung buildable area is 1,507 square meters, and yung open area is 757 square meters. So this is our second iteration, yung it's kind of the same, but the only difference is the shape of the building and how the roof looks like. It's still the same. So this is our section, our cross section for the whole urban fabric, the commercial area. Then we merge the cafe and himay area here. That was retained yung compost area and the farming alunggay. So this is what our access point, what we thought of the access point. So waiting shed is around here, near I'm facing the main road, and the building entrance is here here, so that people, since the landscape area can be filled with people, they can see this is kind of the main entrance of the urban fabric, yung main entrance. Then this is the location of the stairs to the cafe and himay area, so that they can so that it has easy access from the vista. This is the cross section for the to show the access the entrances of the urban fabric. There will be stairs to the cafe entrances. Meron ka bang sasabihin?
Sabihin ko sana yung ano, like from the rear. Na, pero yun lang.
Okay.
Okay na?
Ay,
hindi
sure,
pa
hindi pa po.
po.
Hindi pa po.
Pa tapos. Meron pang slides. Okay, so this is just like a slide showing like the method that will inspire the next slide. So basically, as mentioned from last week, our compost method is vermicomposting. So which uses worms and like yung waste na kinocompose is usually kitchen waste. So like, oh my God, wala yung. Okay, so I'll just continue talking for now. But as you see earlier, it looks like a sack or a bag. Usually, vermicomposting uses a stack of like plastic containers and then you just interchange the bins. But then I found out that there's this new method of vermicomposting where instead of exchanging two containers, you basically just have this one container and then you naturally let the worms climb up to the top of that layer of composting. And then, I don't know. And yeah, basically instead of like interchanging the two stacks for composting, it's just one container where the worms are the ones that naturally climb up to the top layer of the compost, and then on the bottom, doon po mahuhulog yung composting material. Okay. Wait lang sir, cause like, I'll share the rest of the slides. Since nawala si ano.
Oh, wait.
Ay, nawala yung
Ako na lang
okay,
din.
ako na lang ay, hindi. Sige, ako na lang. Okay, where was it?
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah. Again, like, on the top would be yung kitchen waste, and then in the middle would be the worms, and then on the bottom would be the composting material. So, what happens is that you'll place the kitchen waste materials on top, and then the worms would naturally climb up towards the top, leaving the composting material on the bottom. So yeah, as like taken from your advice last week, I basically like turned a column into like a composting bin similar to this one, but then it's like prolonged. Yeah, it's made longer, and yeah, and then in the bottom there would be like a receptacle to catch the compost and another byproduct, which yung gardeners usually call like worm water, which is basically the moisture produced from the vermicompost method. So yeah, this is how it would look like. Like it's between from the second floor to the ground floor. The second floor would be the cafeteria area, and basically the column contains the composting bin. And also on the second floor, like we were thinking that like usually, since to incorporate the method like planting and the composting in front of like usually where people have their coffee, and basically that's where the saplings are going to be placed. And also in this illustration, it's supposed to show much more clearer how a drain tile would work and how it's connected to the pipes on the exterior of the building. And yeah, so and then this one, it's similar to it's the same as the column one where it's like a compost, but this time it's like a table so that people could just directly like sit around the table, doon maghihimay ng malunggay, and then just throw the kitchen waste in the center of the table. And then they could like take some of the malunggay and then dry it on top, like on the ceiling, in that like cylinder contraption thingy. Yeah. Bernadette.
This is our proposed roof plan. on how rainwater can be harvested.
Slide na ba?
Yeah, kita na. So it's kind of like a baby roof. So next. And so it's a rainy roof. And we're planning to have the downspouts be exposed like arches so that people can go around. Like if if people is from our came from the main road, they can go around the urban fabric. So the urban fabric side is like the third floor is the highest floor, like 5 meters. Like yung from the inside, like 5 meters, then like mataas yung sa
Sasabihan mo na lang po ako, ma'am. Pero pag dumating ka para andiyan ako.
na mataas yung part dito. Then around here is like mababa. So that rainwater can go down to the water spots.
Magpapasok mo dito sa may China Bank.
To the downstairs.
Dito sa China Bank pumasok.
That's basically it. Sir.
Opo, at bubuksan na lang po ma'am yung gate.
Oh yeah.
Is it
Opo,
if you mute it, sir?
oo, diyan ka pumasok ma'am sa kamaro.
Para I don't hear your mom.
Ay, sorry.
Sige.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah,
Alright.
sir. I don't think we were able to show it in the PowerPoint, but the reason why we were supposed to collect rainwater is because one of the products you can get from malunggay is using yung seeds ng malunggay to filter water. That's why ganyan.
Okay, sige. Can we go to the roof plan? Because I was a bit worried about the design of the roof plan because we don't really encourage butterfly roofing because of the ridges that can cause a lot of leaks. So no matter how good they were constructed, eventually it will leak. No, so maybe you can rethink on how you can better design the roofing. But I appreciate that there's a reason for it. There's a reason behind the design. Okay, so I also like this section, and if you can explore ideas like this and sheet number 12, we encourage that kind of ideas. And maybe you should also show a floor plan. Since you were talking about the 70-30% efficiency ratio, can we go again to the diagram of 70-30%? And by the way, I love that you guys are committing to a section. So I didn't catch that part when Maureen was talking about the 70% saleable area.
Like, so yung 70% and 30% is like an art guide on how big our urban fabric is. So we can divide the space para hindi masyadong malaki for the courtyard.
Okay, do you have a floor plan of the commercial area, of the saleable areas?
We're thinking, we're still working on it.
Okay, kasi the moment you introduce hallways, corridors, that's non-saleable. Okay, so that's one of the things that you need to consider. Is this commercial area rentable? You can rent the entire building, or it's going to be subdivided into stalls?
At first, sir, we were thinking like rentable and rentable commercial office.
Okay, if it's going to have rentable stalls, you need to provide a plan showing the corridors, and that will definitely deduct the saleability percentage of this building. So yeah, but it's a different case if, let's say, it's going to be landers wherein the entire building is a hypermarket, then you can rent the entire building. But you cannot the only downside for that is that you cannot really say it's a fabric building because not all the buildings naman in the city can be a landers building. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yun. So, but yeah, I love the commitment to the drawing, to the section, and you guys are really trying it out, and that I appreciate.
Mhm.
Okay?
Sir, thank you, sir.
Sige. Thank you guys. Do you have any questions?
I guess, I don't know, I don't know what kind of advice I could receive, but like, I feel like kailangan pang i-incorporate yung water part better, at least in my opinion, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure how to do that.
Okay. You can research on design of roofing.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hmm. Kasi Andrea, at this level kasi, you cannot expect that everything will be taught for you. Otherwise, we won't finish.
Yes, sir.
You get it? So the role of the design consultation is for me to give you advice if it's going to work or not. I'm not here to spoon feed information. Do you get it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you need to research. It's part of your work to research. Okay? So okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sige, thank you, Antea.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maureen. Sige, Joanna and Justin. You may go if you want, Antea and Maureen. And
Yes
then,
po.
sige. And then si Jao after Joanna.
Okay, sir. Sir, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.
Sir, can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Ayan. Whose master plan are you working on again?
We're working on Jacob Layos and Adrius
Adrius.
master plan.
Right. Okay.
We asked them, we messaged them so for
Okay.
we could use it. So. Okay, sir. So the going back from our last progress, sir. So we're still going for the nature reserve center, sir. So we made some a few changes as well to the structure what we've shown you last week, last week, sir. So so not just we've rendered the materials, but also shown at least a the structure with finishes, also with the materials, also provide sections as well that would incorporate our materials to the walls that would not just benefit the structure but also the, let's just say, the detailed version of it, sir. Slide. So so here again is our floor plan. So this is what we based on our structure. We won't be showing the interior rooms, but we would be showing the exterior aspect of our structure, wherein we just wanted to show this floor plan, so at least would give you an idea to the programs or what are the rooms are for. So for our spatial program, we placed the nature facilities or for the research or laboratories beside the or underneath the Arroceros Park. So at least it would be focused and not really be you know that you really have to move to a different space, but you're just already near to the source of your study. And we place the community area where the city is at already, and the commercial area as well. So this is like the our top view on when it's placed already on the let's just say city. So this will be our entrance and how we would be our programs would be like. So here's our entrance already underneath. So once you enter, there will be already a lobby. So it would separate from the office to the commercial side. So you would have the choice to or it will already be chosen already once you enter if you would go to the if you would be a researcher or a scientist or if you just visit the commercial place. So we tried computing for the spaces. We got those areas, each areas, so that we would know the percentage to how much space it is occupied. So for this is what we have. So for non-saleable, we got the garden, the parks, the hallway, the corridor. So for garden parks, it was composed of 41%, 0.92. We tried rounding it up to at least a fixed percentage, but it would really it won't be accurate if we would do that. So for the hallway and corridor, we have 10.17. So for saleable, we have the lobby, office, laboratory, lounges, library, plant shops, food stalls are basically the commercials. So the highest would be 12% and the lowest would be 3.20%. So the rest would be in the middle are for offices, lounges, uh, food stalls, and where the people usually go. So in total, we got only of 61%, 0.06.
Hirap
We
no.
may be, sorry?
Hirap no.
Yeah, it was sort of a challenge, sir, to try to since we
Yeah.
would know already how the space it's like.
Yeah.
So we may add a few more changes to fill in the gap to at
Yeah.
least fill it up
Just to,
to
just,
70%.
yeah, just to clarify, lounges, it's not income generating. So if it's a feature in a building, like the lobby of a hotel, it's not income generating. It's not part of the saleable. So
So lunch and lobby, sir, would be non-saleable.
yeah, because it's not income generating. Think of it as income generating spaces. Even the library is not income generating.
Yeah.
Like,
What we thought of, sir, when we did the saleable and non-saleable was the non-saleable parts are the ones that cannot change over time, whereas the saleable rooms, they're more of the dynamic program. So that's why we included areas such as the laboratory or the lounges, so that if ever there comes a time the owner wants to change the program of the building, they can change how to make money off of that room. Kasi
Yeah,
kasi, sir,
yeah,
when
sorry, go
we
ahead.
when we looked at the PD 957, there's like a guide there for the saleable and non-saleable chart. There's rooms like, for example, multi-purpose halls for villages, wherein the multi-purpose hall and the commercial areas, they're actually considered non-saleable, but it's up to the owner, up to the discretion of the owner if they want to make money off of that room. So that's why we kind of change up the
yes, sir.
saleable.
Kasi sir, there's some situations kasi sir, so we would not be sure to if we would put it to non-saleable or saleable.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that part. You know, I think parang you have a creative interpretation of that, and then I love that you guys reference PD 957 as to how you can get with the percentages. But we also have to think about the commercial reality. What the moment you guys are practicing, those that are not income generating are considered non-saleable. But I understand where you guys are coming from. For example, the warehouse, that is applicable when the usage of the building uh, is the total use. Like you're talking about the totality of the building. For example, the landers or SNR. So the entire building is actually rentable. That's why when you talk about the warehouse, so whatever the owner wants with it, because they're already renting the entire warehouse, you know what I mean? So, but if you
Yes,
are
sir.
designing it in parcel, and I'm financing, for example, I'm a private financier, I'm already spending. You need to think of yourselves as the financier, you already, for example, I'm already renting that lot for example, 1,000,000 pesos. So how do you make me earn 70% of the property? Do you get it? So when I'm already paying for it 100%, the 1,000,000. Do you get it? So the way I'm going to read your plan is that I'm going to see how many percent of this plan is gonna make me earn. Do you get it?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
So the warehouse thing, it's a case to case basis. It's okay if it's going to be like the total use of that because you are renting the entire thing. You can do anything with it. But it's a totally different story when you are designing for someone and then um, you're allocating spaces and then the space that you allocated are not going to earn. So you need to be very sensitive with that. Okay.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. I just wanted. I'm not saying no to this. It's just that I want you guys to be aware of that because I want to balance. Kasi I'm a very idealistic designer as well. But I want you guys to balance it because you cannot be too idealistic in the practice. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed and heartbroken. Okay, towards the end.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Yes,
sige.
sir. Oh, wait.
Nawala.
Okay. There you go. Okay. So the next one, here's an axle section of the building from the north side. So what we did was for the northern part of the building, we covered it with recycled corrugated sheets, which are known as shipping container
Yeah.
buildings. And then on the southern side, it's more open. And the reason for that is so that it deflects the sunlight from the north, whereas on the southern part, it's more open to views and it's not as hot as the north side. So here's like a comparison of the north side versus the south side, where in the north side it's more covered with the facade, whereas the southern side, which is the commercial center, it's more open to views. And how we want to design the fabric of the wall is we decided that since the location itself, it's located by a shipping container site wherein lots of shipping containers are being recycled or abandoned, we thought maybe we can make use of some of those materials for our walls. So we divided the walls into like different panels wherein there's the corrugated sheet, there's the steel frame, there's insulation to control the heat, and then there's of course the windows, the smart windows. So on like the rear of the building, what we did was we made use of the total shipping container as a whole. So we didn't try to manipulate its form, and that will be used as the connecting hallways of the entire building. And then what we did was for like the front of the building, it's more there's like a different form to it. As you can see, it's like angled at a bit so that whenever it rains, it can maybe collect water, or it can be used for solar panels. And then so here's just another section of the paneling. So we're making use of recycled shipping containers or insulation panels to control the heat of the building. And then what we wanted to do with the windows was to make use of the beaming heat. So Justin, do you want to explain this part?
Can you hear me? Okay. So I would like to incorporate the smart glass sana. So where we can adjust the dimming, the color of the and also control the lighting that enters the structure. So because we took consideration that in researches, right, or laboratories, there are some aspects or there's some instances or when you're doing a, let's just say, your ongoing project, sometimes that the room temperature can the specimen requires a certain room temperature, so it wouldn't let's just say be disrupted or something that would change. So to find its results, so we took consideration of this. So at least they would control the lighting and the temperature inside the room, especially the laboratory side. If it's in certain times of day where in the sun it's directly uh that would hit through the window. So we added this as well. So yeah, next slide. So for the walls that would um inside and also the outside. So we made a detail to how at least have an idea to how we're gonna reinforce it to the exterior and also the interior as well. So
Okay, so for the next building, sir, we decided to design the landmark building. So what we thought of was to design a Nazareno chapel. So here, oh wait, so the location, it's at the isolated island of Hospicio de San Jose Hospital and Church. So it's adjacent to the Ayala Bridge and it's surrounded by the Pasig River. So here's the sun path diagram in the wind analysis. Okay, so the reason why we chose this site is because it's actually one of the routes for the Traslacion, also known as, formerly known as the Feast of the Black Nazareno. So in Manila, it's very important for Catholics to be strongly and like physically devoted to the Traslacion or the Black Nazareno. So the Traslacion, it's kind of a male-dominated tradition that happens on the second week of January. So it's kind of a physical thing for Filipinos to devote themselves in hopes of seeing the Black Nazareno because it's like a symbol of a blessing for them. So usually what happens is the translation, it takes place from a certain area across the Intramuros region, and then it goes over the perimeter of Intramuros. So it spans across Manila, and then it goes over the bridges. So sometimes it passes by the Ayala Bridge, and then sometimes it passes by the Quezon Bridge, I think. So last year it took place around Ayala Bridge, and then the final destination is in Quiapo Church. So what they do is they bring in this translation statue. So this tradition has been alive for around 400 years, I think, and every year more and more people join the feast. Okay, so here's a diagram of the building. So the yellow one symbolizes the location of the building. So the site location of the chapel, it's along the Ayala Bridge and it's located on the Hospicio de San Jose Church, which is an isolated island. So there's only one area to access the island, and it's right through this corner here. So that corner, it's actually around, it's less than 3 meters, I think. It's very narrow. It's around like 2.7. So it's quite narrow actually for an ambulance to even pass through. So we thought maybe we can do something about that. But anyways, so what we did was for the buildings, so the highlighted orange one, what we did was it's designated for confession pods, and then the pink one, it's designated for the votive candle room. And then the idea behind it was to display the statue of the translation statue on in the frontage of the building, so that people who are religious or Catholic can get a symbol of blessing in between the river or in between the bridge, especially during the Feast of the Black Nazareno. So, okay, wait, this one is on the north side, and then on the south side, what we did was the green one symbolizes the stair area, whereas the blue one, which is on top, it's the chapel area. So here's like an idea of the concept for the building. So as you can see, it's right across the Ayala Bridge. So whenever people are passing by, they get the symbol of blessing, because I think Manila itself, it's kind of paralleled with devotion or strong religious beliefs, given that they were colonized by Spaniards and they were greatly influenced by Catholicism. So we wanted to make use of that. And also the reason why we chose this specific place is because it's located on the Hospicio de San Jose Church, right? So the origin of that was there was a guy who donated this island for curing people. So I thought that greatly resonates with the purpose of a chapel, which is, to provide relief for people who are passing by this location. Okay, so for the form, we somehow took it from the handkerchief symbol during the translation. So during the translation, there's this thing where people use a handkerchief because it's like the physical symbol of their blessings. So what people do is they get a handkerchief, or like they buy a handkerchief during the day of the feast itself, and then they rub the handkerchief on the statue of the Black Nazareno as a symbol of blessings. And then they actually keep that handkerchief with them. They don't wash it because it's a sign of washing the blessings away. So they keep that, and then they preserve it as much as they can for years to come. And usually there's like a face of Jesus on it or something. And so we took like that, the drapery effect of the handkerchief, and we kind of molded that onto the chapel. Okay. So on the right elevation, as you can see, there's like 3 main windows. So the 2 smaller windows here, they are actually confession pods. So we thought of doing maybe 2 lang, because sometimes these confession pods, usually a priest is not present. So we thought to minimize the number of pods. And then in between, which is like the bigger room, it's the votive candle room. So whenever people pass by this chapel, they can simply pass by this votive candle room and light a candle. It's like a strong symbol again for Catholics to make a simple prayer. And then on the left elevation, there's like a bigger window here. So it's designated for the stairs leading up to the chapel. So here's like another rendered shot of the frontage of the facade. Okay. Oh, so the original idea din pala for this window here is maybe to display the statue of the Black Nazarene, and maybe every now and then they can change up the statue in accordance with whichever what do you call it, like Catholic devotion statue, something. They can switch up the statue. So here's the sun shadow for the chapel. So what's nice, I think, about the sun shadow is that the west and eastern parts of the building are actually facing the windows, the front and rear portion of the windows. Okay, so here's an interior shot of the chapel. So as you can see, there's a road beneath the chapel itself. And the purpose of that is so that there's like a tunnel for cars to pass by it. It's kind of like a drive-through blessing, because this is the only road to access the hospital. So the idea behind the chapel was whenever an ambulance or a vehicle passes by to go to the hospital, they're normally carrying a sick patient, right? So whenever they pass by the chapel, they can get a sense of relief or prayer from the chapel.
Can I add something? So we related mostly it to a superstitious belief, to wherein let's just say when bad things happen, we're into like blessings, stuff like that, that we're in, we pass by church or we do sign of the cross and stuff for it to relate for good luck or for let's just say a good omen for when, as you go through your day, not just when something happens, that's not just when an event happened, but it's also can occur to your daily lives as Christians as well, to or incorporate that we remembered, our, let's just say, faith and stuff that we go through as we go through our daily lives.
Yes. And here on the left elevation, so that one showcases the stairs leading up to the chapel. And then on the right elevation, there's just like a simple cross section of the confession pods and the votive candle room. Okay. So the dimensions for the chapel, the height is 7 meters, and then the length, it's around 13 meters, making the confession pods around 2 by 2 meters, which is equivalent to 4 square meters ish. And then the total floor area for the chapel, it's around 104 square meters. And then here's just another rendered shot of the southern part of the chapel. So that's what we have for today, sir.
Ang bilis naman ng ending. Okay, actually, I love your presentation. So much work and so much ideas. So maybe I should start with the Translation Chapel. I don't know if I said it correctly. I think the ideas that you presented are grounded and at the same time has a lot of merit. And all I can say that I approve this idea. Maybe as a designer, I just want to give you guys some tips. Try to minimize alluding it to objects, because gone are the days wherein you conceptualize a building and then you allude it to an object, because there's a tendency of a lot of designers to say I was inspired by a bird. So literally the building looks like a bird. You know what I mean? So there's a there's a tendency of a lot of designers to end up that way, but you guys didn't end up that way, which is really, really good, because what you need to focus more on is the ideas behind the concept or the inspiration. If you're talking about uh, the ethereal quality of the handkerchief, then talk about that. Don't focus too much on because you saw it in the event. So maybe it can be a building. It doesn't sound sane, right? So when just because you saw it in an event that's being used during that parade in Nazareno, it becomes an automatic idea for a building. They get maybe for a shape, yes, but I think it will be more intelligent if you start with your next ideas, with the ideas that you can generate out of the properties of the handkerchief. Do you get it, guys?
Yes, when I was actually thinking of the handkerchief, I was iffy on putting that in the diagram because I know it's too literal for a
Yes, yes,
concept.
yes. I'm
The
not saying
original,
it's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just giving you lang another strategy, because it's a good thing that towards the end you're talking about a lot of ideas on how you are using the idea of the handkerchief. That it created a program for the confession nook, and then for the entrance, for like a tent-like structure, etc. I'm not necessarily saying that it is wrong. It's just that maybe so that you don't. It's good naman that you didn't. It's good that you actually didn't show the handkerchief, so that you won't appear uh, it won't appear literally. So somehow, I think you know what to do. But I guess, yeah, it's just a tip that you can actually use later on. So I'm curious what kind of material you're thinking of for the building, for this
yeah,
chapel.
so what happened, sir, was this building was actually supposed to be rectangular, and then like the confession pods were more arched. But then I realized that hospitals, which is, for example, Hospicio de San Jose Church, where this site is located in, they produce a lot of medical waste in glass vials. So I thought maybe we can make use of those glass vials into maybe the windows or the shape of the building itself. So
Hmm.
that's why it turned more organic in its form. I couldn't include it here because I lost time of the research portion of that.
Okay, sige. I'm curious how you're going to make this happen, because if it's going to be concrete, you lose the ethereal quality and the lightness of it, because it's hard when you knock on it. I don't know if you guys have been to Okada
Mm, I've seen it
in the
before.
lobby. In the lobby.
Sir, scene lang, sir, but not big.
Sige lang. Sige. Baka you can hang out naman in one of the cafes in the lobby, etc. I've only been there once because of an event by Blueprint. And it's just so funny because I don't know who sponsored or who found the place, but there was an event by Blueprint magazine, and of course, the followers of Blueprint are architects, so they invited all of the architects. And then the lobby of Okada is that it has columns with draperies, and the draperies are made of concrete.
Mm.
Do you get it? So of
That's it.
course, knowing architects, pintas dito, pintas doon. So you don't want it's the spirit of fakeness. That's why it doesn't appear nicely to architects, because of course when you're designing, you want it to be as authentic, as natural as possible. So how do you make this building as authentic as you can, without ignoring the ideas that you already put forward?
Yeah.
Okay, sige, think
Yes.
about that. But the ideas that I saw, and the materials that you presented are very good. So can we go to the fabric building? Okay, I think I have no further comment except for massage the spaces so that it's more realistic in terms of salability. But when it, because you are introducing a lot of innovations that can be costly later on. So that if you can maximize the salability of the design, I don't think it will be an issue already. And I love the skin that you introduce. I also love that the facade and the elevations are varying. It depends on the conditions of the sides. So you are almost on the finishing stage for as long as you are able to maximize the salability by massaging the floor plan more.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's almost there. I mean, it's don't get me wrong. I know that having a courtyard space is the most ideal thing, but I want you guys to work with the realistic parameters and see how you can still make this building interesting with those in mind. Like I said, with the only way you can become better designers if you work with those limits. Do you get it? So yeah, I mean, you already have the ingredients. The skin is actually very, very interesting. It's innovative, 100% approved. They just need to improve the salability and maximizing the space. All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bea, Jao. You guys may go if you want.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
sir.
All right.
Wait. uh,
Sige lang.
is it? Okay, here. Oops. There. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, we can see it.
cool. Okay. So I'll start. So,
Yeah.
from like last meeting, it was kind of we kind of referred to it, and we ended up not really liking how it went, like how we thought of it, and it's kind of compartmentalized on how the different uses of the buildings were like at a particular space, but they weren't married to each other. So like we actually made another iteration, but this wasn't it. Like something like this. We were supposed to like show this next week. I mean last week, but then we thought of a different idea. But like just to give a gist of how it evolved, our iterations and our ideas was how we kind of integrated like the shops and the skate spaces, the walking spaces, and we kind of just um, put them all in one space. It's a bit chaotic. It's a bit out there, but then like what we were just trying to do was more on connecting these different typologies into one, or these types of parks into one. So like just to give up the process on like what we were thinking for our new idea was we actually we went to like the ideas of bowls. That's why it's circles. But then the more we thought of like these bowls, it wasn't really the best idea or like the best solution for what we were trying to do. But the main idea was to use these bowls, some sort of like a platter for like different urban parks that kind of are independent from each other. So so the process is like this: is how we started with the circles with a 3 meter spacing from each other. We kind of strategically place them so that there's space for each other, and like and you'll see later on how we kind of manipulated the simple shape. Then of course we kind of extruded it to like different heights, but and this was really just to kind of create a comfortable undulating surface to add our ramp, which we will show later on, like here. So But before the ramp thing here, we kind of slanted um our the different oops, wait, am I being heard?
No, yeah, now you are. I don't know if it's just me and my Wi-Fi.
Okay.
Sorry.
Sorry. um yeah, so moving on, like we kind of gave these structures like a slant, 1 by 8 slant, from different from each other. For me, when I was trying to figure out like the rotation and the slants of it, I kind of just went with like clay and like started playing with it, and uh w- how we could combine these circles into like we could yeah, combine them all together in a comfortable way. So basically it's it's rotated and like slanted to where they level from each other. So that's why when we built the ramps here, it was quite easy that they all seem to connect from each other. Yeah, and then from that we ended up like with this idea because um we wanted to play with the idea of the balls plus the skating, the cruising trails. And from this, we have like a main circulation of the cruising trail where I guess everybody could use it, the pedestrians, skaters. It's wide enough for like for everyone to use, but from these so they yeah but well basically um you have a circulation towards each end, but then the main idea was to like go through each different spaces of like these circles over here, so that it's kind of like you're traveling into like different skate spots, because the idea was we didn't want to just make the skate park a typical skate park. We wanted to like combine um, part of a skate park, I guess, like a bowl or a flat ground thing, into like a green space maybe, or an undulating surface. So yeah, the idea was just to really make in more intimate spaces that aren't just for the skaters but can be for the skaters, and of course maybe some that are solely for them and some solely for like pedestrian use. So yeah. Bea.
Yeah, sorry. So for the um cylinders or something, the circular structures that we showed earlier, we kind of wanted to already map out what uses we could place within those structures. So then the first thing that we kind of thought of, but the place, yeah, the cafes and restaurants, places that you would normally have parents or other people be able to lounge in while still watching the cruising trails and even skating the skaters around using the different bowls and flat ground surfaces and seeing them. So when you're flat ground, the pockets in between that provided for like smaller skate spots as well as a space for vegetation and different landscaping that fit within it. And also another thing that we wanted to be able to strategically place was both the skateboard recycling shop and the skate shop itself. So then wanted to ensure was that these two places were kind of viewed in a very um, like a direct manner from the pedestrian and the vehicular roads on space that really emphasized on the processes, for example, for the recycling of the skateboards, and also being able to provide spaces for the skate shops that people would be able to purchase, yeah, their new wheels, new decks, and even possibly provide a space that, example, for a class or something like that. And also we were able to kind of pinpoint where we wanted to place our bus stop, because that's something that past weeks, because of the fact that yes, it is next to the LRT and it does provide a great opportunity for that for the rest of the city, and as well as the positioning of the clinic, because we wanted it somewhere that provided easy access for the skaters as well as emergency transport in case it is needed and such like that. And also the last thing that we wanted to kind of focus on was shifting from our idea of aquaponics to more on water collection and filtration for the usage of utility and plant and watering of the plants and such. So then with that, I'll kind of explain it later on, but then we did want to place the water collection processes, which is water collection and filtration process on both ends, because of how we wanted to apply a natural filtration process. Yeah, that makes sense. Next slide, please. And then this is also more general planning that we wanted to do. So then one of the things that really bothered us from our last presentations was how it divided our idea of providing commercial spaces like those cafes and such to the skating typology, because initially it did feel kind of divided, but then by providing a more like intertwined flow by creating like flat ground surfaces near the cafes where people could possibly walk outside and immerse themselves into the activity and the movement of these skaters. And also by providing the rooftops of certain structures to be dedicated purely to bowls and flat ground and green spaces. And also the fact that in this area, the cruising trail is very much the main transport route for people, because we actually thought of providing entrances and exits subtly in the middle, where the two entrances of that entire cruising trail isn't the only way to get up into the area. Like people could usually pass the cafes that connect to the second level, as well as what we plan to do, which I'll show later, which is like a green walkway that people could possibly climb through steps or climb through like a grass patch and everything. So it's somewhat very intuitive in finding your way towards the rooftop where all the skating, more of the skating happens and such. Next slide, please. Jao, next.
Oh,
One.
is it this one?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it like paused on my? I think my Wi-Fi is so slow.
It's the isometric, right?
Yeah. Okay, it's just black to me, but if it is it.
Yeah, what's wrong? What's going on?
I think
I
she's
think
done.
it
Oh, wait,
disconnected.
no.
Oh, my Wi-Fi is so bad. Okay, sorry. Like what's shown on the screen right now? Because it's
The
not showing it.
isometric zone.
Okay. So anyway, for the isometric, this kind of shows the different heights, as Ja mentioned, where it does undulate and provide for kind of emphasizing in some areas, and where we have the two utilities that are in the lower ends of the structure. So then, yeah, the heights vary from like 3 meters to 5 to 8 meters high. And yeah, you could see here as well, like the spaces that are kind of provided in between these structures that allow for yeah, possible landscaping and the more intimate skate spots in between the allowed vegetation and such around the area. Next. So from what I showed earlier, that was more of a general zoning distribution that we thought of. So for this one, we kind of wanted to show how we wanted to really implement providing skate spots, even with even by integrating it with the commercial areas and the restaurants and such. So as you can see in the bigger circles, the ones that are about like 450 square meters, yeah, those provide spaces for at least like 2 to 3 shops possibly, and even a plaza that allows for um like a like movement for people, pedestrians, to possibly go to one area to the next, and also provide for flat ground, uh the different terrains for flat ground skating. Sorry, yeah. And then also we could see here how we did provide for the areas from outside the structure itself, where we did want to be able to create yeah, the what the gray actually is, where we wanted to provide for more flat ground surfaces that don't have that aren't really abundant in vegetation, where it could possibly allow for more a wider space of skate tricks. And even like, yeah, the yellow spot is like the bus stop, where the bus and other modes of transportation could possibly be able to utilize. And also with the green areas, we could see here how there are provided pathways to be able to enter into the hallways, into the different um, structures, the areas like the skateboard recycling shop, and also for the skate spots that are within the structure. As you can see, there are little bowls. In our heads, it was kind of, when I was kind of thinking about it, it was like when you think about the landscaping and you think about tall trees covering into this structure, you would imagine like different like ponds possibly throughout the area, but instead of that, it's kind of replaced by more intimate skate spots where it's bowls and everything that provide spaces for more people to be able to practice their tricks, as well as kind of enjoy how solemn the area becomes. So then it does provide for more private and public, quote unquote, areas for skating and such. And then also, yeah, for the water collection and the water reservoir, yeah, that area, it's more of the process going from one area to the next that I'll kind of explain earlier, because with that, the flow of the water using like the different like rock, sand, charcoal, that type of thing that we kind of learn in science class, and how it's just a natural process for water filtration. We kind of wanted to be able to use that and implement it into the flooring of the hallway, and how the sound of the water moving from one end to the other is very much influenced by, yeah, the origin of skate and how it can benefit, yeah, the area in terms of cooling the space as well. Yeah, I think that's, oh yeah, and then the green arrow, sorry, that was like one example with how we wanted to be able to implement like the like more possible entrances from the different areas, instead of the two ends of the cruising trail towards the roof deck. So then possibly in that area, it kind of becomes like a landscape feature that connects to the architecture, that allows for people to be able to kind of climb the grass patch or like a staircase going to the structure. And it kind of leads up to the skateboard recycling shop that we did want to really emphasize. Yeah, next. And for this one, yeah, it does show how we did want to create spaces that allow for bowls, flat grounds to be connected with the entrance to the cafe and restaurant. Because one of the major things that we did want to implement even before was the being able to kind of show people the skate and introduce to people the skating community, what it's like and how welcoming it can actually be, and how it's really misinterpreted to be kind of very dangerous and unwelcoming and kind of exclusive. So then by providing these spaces for people to view and also be able to pass by it to go to their destination and such, it kind of allows for people to really immerse themselves into the skating culture. And also it all it does provide, the one that I mentioned before, which is the like the parents or other people to be able to guard the area. So then it kind of is influenced by um the what's that, the Gene Jacobs thing, the eyes on the streets, where we didn't want these skate spots to be isolated and not seen by people, because by creating spaces for skate and commercial together, it does allow for people to kind of police people in a sense, but also just be able to not create isolated areas that become dangerous at one point to a sense. And as you can see in the orange spots, those are actually the peaks of that cruising trail. So then in this cruising trail, it does show how there is possibly a more choreographed way to go around the area while going into those skate spots, which are the circular rooftops. They become more free in movement. So then in kind of creating this idea, we were thinking about how we wanted to think more about how in bowls you jump from one space to the next space, and it's very flowy and everything, and how they could really go to do one trick to the next and kind of practice different types of things in certain areas. So then we wanted to be able to implement that idea into this space. So next slide. So this one actually shows what I meant by the water filtration earlier. So then, actually it was kind of influenced as well by the principles that we introduced very early on when we were talking about what we wanted to, like how we wanted to approach our fabric building. So then, like, this hallway is actually cut up into 6 sections. Yeah, 6 sections. And then in each section, there are the different types of minerals that allow for the water filtration to happen. And then in between those sections, there are the entrances towards those structures that have the commercial spaces, the skate shops, the recycling shop. And it allows for like a signal towards like the next space, because one of the things that we wanted to really include and implement onto our area was the variety of materials that provide for signaling of like the different the different spaces, and like kind of direct people towards areas. So one of the things that we did want to include there was by providing different, possibly like a different flooring every time there is like a somewhere that you could possibly go to in the next space and such. And that's basically it for this one.
Oh, okay. Is the last one?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Oh, and yeah. So this is the probably like just an experiment because we were still kind of iffy with the idea, and like we're trying to add some stuff and see the possibilities of it. And like I think I'd like to add to the filtration thing as well, and like how these bowls all over the place, all over the buildings, um can suck the rainwater possibly, um and act as collectors for the filtration, uh, connected to the flooring over here. And like it kind of comes with the idea of how these bowls were originated from basically Californian pools, and how we're kind of bringing these bowls back to their kind of original source in a way, because they do have like drainage in them. So why don't we use it in a positive way? And yeah, and it's also similar to like some of our precedents on how some parks, like in Rotterdam, where it acts as a place to collect the water so that it wouldn't flood in that particular area. So like in some way or the other, these also help uh, in the rainwater collection and the gathering of the water to be used in like all over the place, because there's lots of like greens and faunas and grass and everything. So like yeah, so basically one of the the, so this kind of like the synthesis of what we can do. um so starting from here, we see like the protruding shop. Still in its like first iteration, it could still be a lot more special than this. But then our idea was just to connect the top floor and the floor below that, and to what's Bea explained, and how parents, other people could police uh each other, um or like the skaters as well, and kind of integrate the skating culture in this small area. So like because of this, what happened is that we lost space for adding more bowls. Basically this is kind of like a reduced size of a kidney shaped bowl, um which kind of limits it to maybe like kids maybe for using this type of bowl. But instead of like of having that limitation and accepting that we also have flat ground possibilities down below, and so that we do not waste space as a skate park. And obviously it's also a more intimate space where um, it's a lot more safer, and it's also connected to the shop. So if um, the parents would want to like um, police their child, I guess, or like protect their child, it's a lot more intimate space, or a lot more safer. It's a lot safer for these types of people, the kids trying to start out playing. But then the main idea here was just to create these spots where these people can we could kind of reduce the how much skaters are in the place by dispersing them to different spaces, which kind of removes that sense of kind of that negative connotation of like skaters, and like how they kind of congregate and start events, and people would stray away from those spaces in the end. But uh, in this, it kind of disperses the different skate parks into little skate spots, so that it's a lot more synthesized with like the green spaces and the people around them. And yeah, and as you can see, like how it's almost the main thing of like the cruising trail, being like the main circulation both for irrigation and for people, and how it's a very important part in navigating throughout the spaces as well. So yeah, I think that's our presentation for today.
Okay, I think this is much developed than the previous weeks. I mean, 2 weeks ago was your last presentation, and I think it's less compartmentalized. And especially when I'm looking at the winding zigzag, can you open 008?
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, and then it reminded me of a project of a former student. I'll probably share the model later on, but it's an aqueduct. It's an aqueduct located somewhere in Manila. I'm not sure if it's Payatas, I forgot already, or somewhere in Manila Bay. And the morphology of the aqueduct introduced different programs, and that's sort of the semblance of what's happening here. If you can, this is what I was talking about. Like if you can design something for the skateboarders, the morphologies that you generate, and then the ideas behind, what kind of ideas can you create? What kind of programs can you create out of it? And the water reservoir is one thing, like how you transport water. Then you create some sort of an artificial water stream, alluding to the river indirectly, but not necessarily say you're inspired by Pasig River, but just alluding to it. This is what I was talking about, Joanna, earlier. So you sort of reference indirectly ideas. And then, yeah, and I sort of approve this idea because I think it's in the right direction, but I then can't really pinpoint exactly, or probably not spoon feed, but more like specifically say what you should do next. Because based on what I'm seeing, the diagrams and then the forms that I'm seeing, I think you can come up with other programs that will normalize skateboarding, that will intertwine normal people with skateboarders. Did you follow, guys?
Yeah. Yep.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, sir.
I want that idea to come from you. But to be honest, wala pa. I can't think of any idea. But I have a feeling there is. I have a strong hunch that you're just not, probably, you're still doubting yourself, or you don't have the idea yet. But I have a feeling, it's something. It's when you see something, and you know that there's an idea, potential idea behind it. So that's how strong the the ideas that you're presenting to me now. That's how strong the potential is.
Sir,
Yeah.
that was us this whole week.
I'm just thinking,
That was in our heads,
what
like
is that
we're
idea?
almost there, but then we don't know what we don't know. So
You know, I'm serious, and I mean it when I say that compared 2 weeks ago, I can really see the potential of the hybridization of space and program. I can really see how you can get more ideas from this compared to the how compartmentalized it was last time. So yeah, I can see the ideas of the high line. I can see the ideas of the aqueduct. I can see the ideas of the skateboarding. But I think you need to push further, and that is the sad part. I mean, you need to really generate ideas out of this, and maybe you need to explore more of the morphologies of the skateboarding. Maybe you haven't really studied everything. I'm not saying that
Oh.
you're lazy, but maybe you haven't. Just in case, you'll never know. That might be another small idea that can generate something that will tie up the other programs.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So, It's getting there. And you know what what I'm really happy about is that somehow we are at the stage we're on the same page already. You already know what I mean. You get it? So it's just that
Yes.
I can only do so much. I can only critique. I can only make you see what you cannot see. But the idea should come from you.
Okay, sir.
Yes,
All
we
right?
understand.
Yeah. Go ahead, guys. Unless you have any questions.
But like we're in the right direction, right? So it's like not kind
Yeah.
of going
Yeah.
backwards. Okay.
No, not at all. This is like I said, I mean it when I said like this is more glaring, this is obvious. What's the right word? Uh anyway, if I don't know the right word, but it has the ingredients to go to the next level, or it has the right ingredients to generate more ideas as compared to the last time. Because the last time, basically, you're just thinking about skateboarding, that's about it, and then thinking of having a cafe beside it, and that's about it. But now that you are all doing all of these things, exploring how you're going to intertwine, water collection with skateboarding, how they are related, I think it's giving a lot of potential ideas. Um, and probably those circles are the best way to program the building, because you're talking about how the movement of the skateboards are like. So yeah.
Okay, sir.
All right, sir.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Much to think about.
It's still a big question. Yeah, Mark. Well, it's a
Yeah.
laboratory for crying out loud. Sige. Okay, sila Janiel and Kier.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
Mm,
Yeah, it's ano na, you can share already.
yeah, sir, I'll share. Sorry. Is it seen?
Loading. Now it's seen.
There. Okay.
Hi, sir. From last week, you advised us to create a vertical diagram that connects the typology of a mosque to the rice production and consumption processes. So, that's what we did. So in this diagram, we separated the rice production system, which is the horizontal one, and the vertical ones are um the activities and spaces that come with each rice process. So I'll start with the minaret in the left hand corner. So um as we mentioned, the minaret is an air well, wind tunnel, and water catchment, and we specifically segregated the water that will be used as non-consumable. So it'll be used more for irrigation and for the fish pond. So that minaret, the water from that system will head on to the rice paddy terraces, and then will lead to our wall typology, which is water filtration using um, algae. And I'll be explaining more on that later on the form language that we came up with that concept. And then from that falling of water sa tiles, it'll head on to the ablution area, which is part of the mosque typology, and we'll head on to the fish pond and for plumbing purposes. The next rice process is the rice drying, and as we mentioned before, we'll be incorporating sort of raking of the rice grains, similar to that of the Japanese Zen garden. And then after that is the rice milling and post-processing space, which I'll be explaining later on again, but that will be inclusive of our courtyard waterfall feature. The courtyard is an essential part of Islamic architecture, especially mosques. So we're incorporating that, as well as the storage for processed rice. So that system as a whole will sort of be used as a sound masking system for the noise that will be produced in the rice milling. After which, the cooking process where meals will be produced, so that that is inclusive of halal education to relate it to the culture of Muslims, and the kitchen and pantry. So the foods that will be provided within the structure will be fish, which will be taken from the fish pond, rice products, and other complementary edible plants. And then lastly, we have the consumption of the processed rice. So that includes food banks and dining spaces. So as you can see, these last three activities will incorporate a different water catchment for that filters for consumption purposes. Next here.
Did it change already?
Not yet. Oh, for me, not yet. Oh no. Is it me?
Wait, what slide are you looking at?
Oh, there. Meron na. Okay.
Okay.
So as I said, we were looking into other rice delicacies in our culture. So these, I just wanted to give some examples. So it'll pave way for more secondary plants that can be incorporated throughout the structure. Yeah, that's all for this one. Next year.
Okay.
Okay, so as for the tiles, I mentioned this last week regarding the ablution area, where we'll sort of be incorporating the falling of water. That's how I mentioned, like the system of from the plants to the filtration and then to the washing area. So for this sheet, I wanted to expand on how we came up with the design language, which will also be incorporated in other aspects throughout the structure. But basically, we were inspired by, or we're utilizing the Islamic plant motifs or vegetal patterns, which could be seen in traditional mosques today, where they're basically not natural depictions of flowers and other plant forms in their ornamental designs, and they don't necessarily have symbolic meaning. So we decided to take on like a sort of minimalist, more simplistic way. So here's the breakdown of that process on the left side. And as a result, we're using these as tiles for, yeah, as I said, the wall topology for the ablution area. So there are existing studies on algae hydrogel where these um, uh, are being incorporated onto tiles as to um, filter water through like cavities and like ridges incorporated into the tile itself. So um, we're doing a sort of similar thing with this one. And later in our model, you'll be able to see how we sort of tweak this design language to fit also other purposes. Okay, so this is just an update of the ablution area and the prayer room. So yeah, what we did was within the ablution area is a central prayer room. So sort of circulating that prayer room is where people could prepare and keep their belongings, and at the same time be able to wash and get ready before they enter the meditative state. So you see how we incorporated that design language from the ablution area, and also as little like nooks for belongings such as shoes and other necessary things that they might have with them. Also in the left side, you mentioned that we'll be incorporating a sort of rooftop water channel, sort of mimicking like that aqueduct precedent that we mentioned beforehand in previous weeks. So the water could better circulate throughout the structure in like very subtle ways. So with that being said, we were looking into details of how to sort of enhance the space even more in minimal but effective ways to still protrude that sense of like importance and like correlation with the water. So that creates a caustic effect indoors in the ablution area. Okay, next please. And then this is our rice milling area. It's in the center of our structure, but this is a breakdown of the flow of the process of the processing of the rice. So I numbered it naman. So from the rice paddy, the visitor will go up the terrace and walk outside to number 2, which is the rice drying area where the raking activities could be held. And then since the rice drying area is located there, it'll be easy to transport towards the milling station. So as you can see in the photo, rice milling, the process of rice milling in the Philippines, especially in like rice production businesses in the Philippines, are done in a way where one person is on a floor above, since the machineries, there are machineries that are quite big for large productions. And then, so we decided to incorporate that as a means to also create some another interactive activity for the visitors. So the dried rice grains will be dropped to the rice milling machine, and then from the rice milling machine, it will go to the processing area where grading and weighing and washing of the rice will be done, and then will be stored in the bottom center below, where we're still figuring out how to incorporate the water feature with this rice storage as a sort of feature in the courtyard area on the bottom, as to mask the sound from the milling of the rice above. So yeah, that's it for this one.
Okay. So for this sheet, we just focused on the planting requirements, specifically for black pepper, mung bean, or toge, cabbage, tomato, onion, garlic. Because like we've mentioned last week, for our fabric building, we decided which would be the shop houses. So here. The our typology for the current shop house was a shop or a restaurant in the front area, while the back and upper floors would be the living area and terraced plant cultivation area. So we wanted to study how these specific plants were going to be planted, so that we could maximize the yield, specifically since for the fabric building, we decided to focus on the production of lumpia. Yeah. So this is the floor plan for the shop house. So on the ground floor, we have an arcaded entry. So we wanted to incorporate the arches similar to how we incorporated the arches in the mosque. So from there, you'll enter the main shop area, or for this specific building, it would be a sort of restaurant with an open kitchen. And then from there would be a hallway access to the private area of the owner. So that would be their own kitchen and dining room. And then on the second floor, that would open to the bedrooms and a living area. And then up to the third floor, where it would be mainly a terraced plant cultivation area. So the air well, we like we stated last week, we got from the typical design of shop houses, since it allowed proper ventilation not throughout the entire shop house. So that entire area will be left open. And then we also wanted to further possibly use that area for the other concept that we mentioned last week, which was the use of the excess water from the terraced plant cultivation area to as a transport system for a new sort of delivery system for the restaurant and kitchen. So, mm, okay, there. So this is a section bubble diagram. So the water would flow, would catch the rainwater as well as get the excess water that was get the water that was used from the terrace plant cultivation area, and it would flow down um through the air well or the open area, and then flow to the kitchen, and then from there be used for um possibly the restrooms, and then possibly have it cycle throughout again after being filtered. Yeah, I think that's all for this one, sir, this week. We're still trying to design like the final concept of
Well,
we'll be applying the transport system using the water.
okay. I think the idea behind the church is very sophisticated. You've gone I think you've already reached that stage that you already know what to do with the ideas presented to you and how you can make it more useful, at the same time elegant and really architectural. And I want you guys to keep pushing yourself in doing so. So just keep finishing the church typology and the farming thing. And then probably for the two-story shop house, bring in more ideas so that you can have the same level of sophistication and complexity for the shop house.
Okay, sir.
Okay? So,
Sir.
okay, sige. Good job, guys, as always. All right?
Sir,
Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah.
thank
Any,
you, sir. We wanted to ask
yeah.
if you had like the deliverables now for finals.
The typical, but syempre, we'd want an updated walkthrough with your buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sir. We're ready na for the
Thesis na, sir.
ayun naman pala eh. Kasi
Ready na
syempre,
kami.
we need to imagine the city that you designed with, the with the unique buildings.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sir. We
Other-
got PC specifically.
Okay,
So
naku.
Wow, that's
the
good.
walkthroughs na.
Yeah, kasi,
Kaya both of us.
oh, that's good. Sana kaya, ha? That's why it's good that you are almost on the finishing phase already. At least you can work on the production.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to see I want to see how unique, almost like Wakanda unique, yung Manila City Hall area. The only thing familiar is the City Hall Tower, the GSIS,
Yeah.
and the rest are parang where in the world are we? Ganun ang kailangan effect. Like
Okay,
that.
sir.
Sige, good. Okay.
So, sir, for finals, it's a combination of ArcGIS 4 and 5, technically.
Yes.
The requirements.
Yes.
Okay.
Basically, it's like design 4, pero may walkthrough to update the master plan.
Okay, sir.
Ganun lang naman. Pero
Paano yan?
except that dalawang typologies yung pinapresent nyo.
So, sir, how do we show it so walkthrough? Like in that certain area?
Kayo na bahala. Di bali kasi kanya this two-story shop house, gawa na lang kayo ng iterations, iba guesstimate na lang. Like assumption. So basically, you have a prototype, a specimen, and then the rest are just permutations. Dahil syempre mag-a-adjust yan based on the user, condition, location, orientation, etc.
Okay, sir.
Okay, good.
Alright? Except for the church kasi iba yung landmark yun eh.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Alright, see you. Thank you guys.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
sir.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.